Hi everyone. When visiting your relative in a dementia facility, it's important to assess their thinking capacity, their emotional capacity, their physical capacity. So for their emotional capacity, assess their mood, whether they're depressed and down and flat, or whether they're anxious and spiraled up and stressed and tense, or whether they're angry and what to do about that. In terms of their physical capacity, make sure that they're drinking, that they're hydrated, that they're eating well. If they have any problems with their walking or their feet, make sure that that's being addressed. And then in terms of their thinking capacity, are they able to communicate clearly? Are they able to ask questions, fend for themselves? All of these things need to be assessed so that then you will know and be able to gear as to how best to help your relative in a dementia facility. So just to go into some aspects here in terms of the experiences that I've had in a dementia unit, I think we'll start off with the emotional aspect. It's really important to be able to assess when you come into the unit where your parent is at. Especially if they first come in, they're going to go through all those stages of grief, aren't they? And anxiety and depression and disbelief, all being a part of that. Depression often being the longest stage that people go through. So your mother may well have experienced some of these, emotions before. Say if she's depressed and it's difficult to get her out of the depression, still you'll know things that pick her up better than anyone else. So if emotionally she's depressed and flat and that increases in the unit and you can see that she's really not engaging with activities or other people in the group or at the table or in the unit, try and work through a process with her that is able to pick up her spirits. It may be that you need to take her out a bit, just so that she can get some respite from the place and get some positive worldly socialization with the family and the children, maybe at home on a Sunday for half a day. Or if she enjoys going to the gardens, taking her for a walk there. But quite a lot of input to pick up the mood is needed initially, especially when they come into the unit. And if the person is stressed or uptight, making sure that they get enough relaxation in their beautifully set up room, hopefully north facing with the sun, and a good, lie down on the bed with you sitting there and having a nice chat, and supporting them is often enough to be able to, settle the anxiety. So assessing mood and treating mood in the manner that is required. I mean, if the person's really angry, well, it's not a good idea to take them out of the unit actually, because you might have difficulty getting them back in, especially if they're aggressive and they want to go out and, they never want to come back into the place. And it can be, people can get physically violent. And if they're big, tall, strong men, trying to get them back into a dementia unit after they've had a walk out and they know that they're then coming into a place where they're confined, can be really difficult trying to get them back in after a walk. So that's why, so many strategies are needed to be able to de-escalate people that are angry. And a lot of the time it's that love, that support, that compassion, explanations, explaining to them lovingly why they're in the dementia unit many times if you need to, as I've gone into this in videos prior, is so important, so that to work through, use reasoning power, appeal to their reasoning, as to why they're in the unit and explaining all the safety risks and why they're there. So this is how you can settle anger. So these are the emotional capacities: depression, anxiety, and anger, and how to settle that. Now, in terms of physical capacity, eating and drinking are the big ones, aren't they? Really, if you can see that your mother's losing weight, her clothes aren't fitting as well as they used to, and she's, getting urinary tract infections, it could be dehydration. And when you're there, making sure that she has a glass of water, that you're encouraging her to drink while you're there at least, because sometimes people with dementia forget to drink their water when they're in their room, and if they haven't got staff reminding them, and or otherwise they're not interested in drinking water, and a whole day can go by and they've hardly drunk anything. So in terms of physical capacity, drinking and eating and making sure that you have a good relationship set up and established with the charge nurse in the facility, so that you can go to her with concerns and they can be addressed quickly. If, for example, you feel that your mother's not drinking or eating, you can ask her to be weighed. So it's often just a monthly weigh-in, but if she can be weighed at any time, and that can be charted, noted to the doctor if she's lost significant weight, and for you to get the results of that. So these are the ways that you as a relative can keep on top of all these issues around physical capacity for your parent, so that it doesn't just sort of get missed under the radar, as sometimes it does when staff are so busy. But as a relative, you can observe signs and symptoms with your parent that others may not pick up on as quickly. Things like, feet care with bunions and verrucas and things like that are really important for the person to be able to keep their physical capacity of walking. So that if you notice that your mother's limping and she's had verrucas before, then you can ask the charge nurse if your mother can see a chiropodist and have that put in place regularly for feet care. So, there's so many things to keep an eye on, and not just to rely on the medical establishment. Of course, they're doing their best. Of course, they're doing what they can, and they pick up on most things, of course. But still, as a relative, your parent, from a common sense point of view, the history. Whether she was, whether she'd got dehydrated in the past, maybe when she was living at home, maybe she's always had a poor appetite and not cooked very much, and she can lose weight quickly, and that's happened before. The medical history of your parent, which the people in the facility don't know, so you can pick up on things quickly and alert the medical establishment of that. In terms of thinking capacity, of course, to be able to communicate, we have to be able to think clearly. And to think clearly and to activate thinking, to activate the mind to think, to activate the intellect to think, it's really important to ask searching questions to your parent, and not just with a yes/no answer. To be able to get the cognitive cogs going for the thinking, they actually have to, think. To be able to think, you have to think. I mean, that's obvious, but still, if you're just sitting there mind numbed, shut down and shut off, the cognitive wheels of thinking are not working in a way that's constructive anyway. So to get constructive thinking going, you need to ask your parent good searching questions and give them information. Come in, news of, the general news of the city, news of the country, news that they'll be interested in, that they used to read up on before, or the television news. Bring in the news and make an effort to give them good quality information, and then ask them for feedback on what you've just said. Oh, well, Mum, what do you think about that big, convention centre going up in the city? Or what do you think about the cathedral? Do you think that it should be a brand new cathedral, or half modern and half traditional, or whatever issues she's been following in the past that she'll have an interest in? Ask for feedback and let her take her time, and will be slow at first, and her voice may be soft, and not to interrupt, and quietly she'll come to the party, or your father will come to the party, and hopefully be able to communicate with you, and then you can pick up from there, and their confidence and communication skills can build. So these are the two books I've written, The Resident's Voice and The Resident's Rise, both from a dementia unit, with all this information in there. Thank you for your support and your likes and your subscriptions, and please subscribe. I really appreciate it, and pass on these links to people affected by dementia. Thank you.